Hello and many thanks for joining us. Welcome to the program with me, Imonia Marere. The Pan Niger Delta Forum, otherwise known as Pandef, is a socio-political organization that seeks to represent and promote the interests and welfare of the Niger Delta region. It works to articulate and advocate for the concerns of the region, much like other regional socio-political and socio-cultural groups in Nigeria today. Pandef was established on October 24, 2016, making it about the youngest of the regional groupings in Nigeria. Its promoters say it is a response to the need for a platform to address the challenges faced by the Niger Delta region, which include environmental degradation, underdevelopment, political marginalization, inequitable distribution of resources, and conflicts, amongst others. Along these lines, the forum has been addressing issues around environmental protection, caused majorly by oil exploration and exploitation, peace building and conflict resolution, political representation, and resource control advocacy. It also seeks to influence national policies in favor of the region. Now, this South-South region is known to contribute enormously to Nigeria's wealth. In fact, it is regarded as the wealth basket of the nation. Now, despite this, the forum laments the placement of the region at the very bottom of almost all recognized development indices and wonders when the benefits of its huge natural endowments will get to every corner of the region. At its last General Assembly on October 24, 2024, the forum set up a Peace and Reconciliation Committee. Now, almost 3 months later, how much peace has the committee been able to achieve amidst growing discontent in the region? My guest on the program today is the national chairman of Pandef, Ambassador Dr. Godknows Boladei Igali. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for finding time to join us.
Thank you.
Ambassador Dr. Godknows Boladei Igali is a retired diplomat and a former Nigerian ambassador to Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. He was also at several times advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo and President President Yar'Adua. His last major public appointment was as Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Power, at the middle of the reforms and until 2023. Pro-Chancellor, Federal University of Technology, Akure, and co-chairman of Committee of Pro-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. An accomplished scholar and award-winning writer, in October 24, like I said earlier, he was chosen as the national chairman of Pan Niger Delta Forum, Pandef, the apex body of the South-South geopolitical zone. Once again, welcome and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Right. So let's go straight into our discussion, Ambassador. Let's begin perhaps on a general note. Many Nigerians wonder why, after 64 years of independence, we as a people are still retreating back into our regions, into our ethnic cocoons and all of that, and relying on such ethnic platforms as the Arewa Consultative Forum, the Afenifere, the Ohaneze Ndigbo, Pandef, and of course, the North Central Middle Belt Forum. Why is that so? Because they also begin to think that these regional groupings are perhaps a distraction to the goal of national unity and integration.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Let me start from very last point you've made, whether they are a distraction. On the contrary, I think it is a revisit to the original format in which the founding fathers of this country conceived our process of state building. If you remember, the First Republic was based on regionalism. Actually, from 1914, when Lord Lugard brought the North and the South together, he identified that Nigeria was one country, possible one country, made up of different segments. And these segments could be brought together as building blocks towards having a cohesive, united country. And when the Richard's Constitution of 1946, I'm trying to fast forward to the front, made clear regionalism. And then we had later Macpherson Constitution, Littleton Constitution, and they marched towards independence. Throughout all the constitutional processes that led to independence, the discussion was that we are one country, we are aspiring to be one country, and it is a very legitimate and good aspiration, but we should not attenuate or throw away the realities of our historical experience. So the idea was, let us still have some form of regional blocks that will come together to build a country. This concept was properly negotiated, agreed, and discussed. From 1946, Richard Constitution, like I said, then there was the Ibadan Conference of 1950, where all the British brought together all the various component groups, and they said, how do you want this country to be? Oh, they said, look, we want a country where we are one, where we will be together, but we don't want to dissolve our realities. So you could as well ask, why do we have traditional rulers all over the country? Because if we have people who are elected as governors, why do you have traditional rulers who are still by right territorial sovereigns in their territories? And in many places, they even have take place of precedence over the political, elected political authorities in terms of the actual respect which they enjoy from the people. So I don't think that these sub-regional groups are a distraction or taking us back. They exist, and well, you are right. Pan Niger Delta Forum is the most recent of them. Ohaneze Arewa Consultative Group, they've existed perhaps even before the independence of the country. And they have been the reason why this country has stayed together in terms of creating a platform for meaningful dialogue, meaningful exchanges, to ensure that our commonality is towards preserving the smaller units, but as building blocks. For you to build any edifice, there must be blocks. It does not just stand on its own. So I think that what is important is if they don't deviate from that objective of the commonality, the indivisibility of the country, and working towards unity and mutual coexistence. And I think that is what these groups stand to do. I think they are a positive value, a positive addition to the process of state building. It's not possible for you, let me tell you, India and Pakistan negotiated independence as one. Then at the vortex, at the point of independence, the Pakistanis led by Ali Jini said, no, we can't be one. We want to go away. And you know what has happened to the Indian subcontinent? Today, about 5 countries have come out of one. But in Nigeria, on the other hand, our founding fathers, Nnamdi Azikiwe, our founding fathers of Bafim Awolowo, our founding fathers, Sardauna of Sokoto, Nauru, Dapabriye, and all the rest of them, they said, no, we must be one. Let us remain one, but let's still respect the historical processes of thousands and hundreds of years that has brought us thus far. So the simple answer to your question is that the fact that we have such groups in existence even takes the pressure away from government, because there are a lot of discussions at the level of these groups that keep the people together, that make people to understand each other. Then there's a feedback. None of these groups is superior to the political authorities. These groups work with their governors, but then they create another tier where they're able to discuss issues that sometimes may be too sensitive even to discuss in the public. So I believe that, and there's a change now. They are bringing some of us in. Some of us were not really into the mainstream of such things. And we are coming in, and I think it is a very major positive development for us, in my case, to the Niger Delta and to the country.
Some of these groups emerge as socio-cultural groups,
Yes.
like the Afenifere, for instance. Others brand themselves as socio-political.
Well, no.
Maybe because
yes.
Those that are socio-cultural, the homogeneous cultural outlook of their regions.
Yes.
But in the case of Pandef, the Niger Delta has very diverse
Yes.
cultural
Yes.
backgrounds and all of that. So what can the Pandef be branded as?
I think it's a matter of nomenclature, whether sociocultural or sociopolitical. You cannot separate the line between what is strictly cultural and what is strictly political. They are the one, and what is important is these groups stand to represent interests of their people at a level. For example, let me talk about the Niger Delta. You spoke about Afenifere. Yes, Afenifere started, and some within Afenifere have argued that Afenifere is not strictly speaking a cultural body. The cultural aspect was towards taking power. And the same thing happened in the north. The political parties started from these bodies, and each of the parties gravitated to the level of forming political parties. So it's a matter of nomenclature. But talk of the Niger Delta, where we have diverse people, it's not totally right to say that Niger Delta people are like the words of Professor Yandele of old, that they are atomistic, separate. Look, there has been very close cross-cultural and political association between the people, various peoples of Niger Delta. These are your neighbors, these are your people. Somebody said once that the difference you make between one person from another, one group from another, is the way they tie their wrapper or the kind of hat they wear. We're the same people. We've lived together for thousands of years, peacefully intermarried. And if you look at our Niger Delta people, inside the DNA, inside the blood, there's always droplets of some other groups. Because before now, our forefathers were very polygamous, and sometimes they derive pleasure in having a few wives from different places. So you have people, even present. Look, let me give you an example of a man like Chief Edwin Clark. Edwin Clark, yes, they say a Jaw leader, but Chief Edwin Clark's mother is Urobo, and his grandmother is a Shekiri. And then from his family, he has people who are Kwale, who are Isoko, who are his half cousins or children of his own grandfather. So the point, and that is just an example, by the way. So for almost all of us, you see there's a little blood of Isoko and there's a little blood of Afema. So we are one people.
Intermarriages.
Intermarriages, especially over time. And these values are held very strictly. So when you have an event, a burial or a marriage, you see people come from everywhere and they trace the genealogy back. And to say, look, your grandmother was married as a young woman and so on. So it is not, the groups are there, yes, to promote culture. For example, Niger Delta, we cannot say there is total homogeneity, but there are a lot of areas of intersection between our peoples. So for us, we've been together. And the British, I must commend the British, and it's because the early officials were sociologists, anthropologists, so they could come and do the typing of the people and mapping them properly. So that's why they could classify them, and rightly so. They looked at the north, and they saw that there were major groups, the Hausa, Fulani, the Kanuris. Then in between them, interspersing between them, were other smaller groups. They looked at the southeast. There were the Igbos, a solid group. Then a few other smaller groups. The South were the same thing. And you couldn't fault those lines that they drew. So what we are doing in the Niger Delta, and also the Niger Delta has not always politically been all separated. If you remember in the 50s and 60s, there was a core movement, Calabar, Ogoja, Rivers province movement. At the other side, there was a movement towards the Midwest, which also take the minorities in the Midwest, in the West, away from the Western region, while the core movement was to take the minority away from the Eastern region. Core movement didn't come through. Willings Commission said, well, create a development area. But in the Midwest, it came through. So they've been together in the core movement. After that, the South People's Assembly, and I must pay tribute to the great founder of AIT, Chief Raymond Dokpesi. And I believe some of you were his foot soldiers because you were dishing out policies of how South people can come together, integration. Dokpesi was one of the brains towards SSPLA, South People's Assembly, brought everybody together, MT Mbu, Joseph Wyers, and all of them were together. Then they went to Parliament. And after some time, SSPLA went off. Then Pandef now came again at the height of the crisis, the second crisis, when President Buhari came in and the Avengers said, no, 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 no oil production. Chief Dokpesi again, working with a few other leaders, came together and formed Pandef. So it's not as if we've not ever been together. But I want to put it to you that these groups contribute majorly to peace.
Okay.
Let me just give you an example. In 2016, when Avengers said no more oil production went from 2 million barrels to 800 barrels. And the Niger Delta leaders came together and said, no, no, enough is enough. And I've called some names already. We met in Warri and met in a few places and said, let us go and tell our boys, enough is enough. Now, it needed a group. It's not an Ijaw problem alone, or a Shekri or Robo problem, or a Quero problem. It was a problem of the Niger Delta. The oil is in the Niger Delta, and we wanted to create a situation where, yes, where oil can continue to flow to help the country. And Pandef, that's how Pandef was formed, from SSPLA, South People's Assembly. So I think that, that this last example gives you the real value of these bodies, which governments continued trying to do and couldn't succeed. So,
all right. My guest is Ambassador Dr. Godknows Boladei Igali. He is the chairman of Pandef. We'll be back in a moment with a lot more. Stay with us.
Of our dream, the Nigeria we need is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria, which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
Thank you so much for staying with us. My guest is Dr. Ambassador Godknows Boladei Igali, chairman of Pandef. Right. Ambassador, let's look at the relationship between Pandef and the other regional groupings. So how do they relate? I mean, do they have a meeting point at some point along the line?
yes, absolutely. To the best of my knowledge, I've just come in as national chairman, but we're in the wings, in the background, and there were regular meetings between all these groups, Arewa, Northern Elders Forum, Haneze and Igbo, Fenifere. There were regular meetings. Actually, the meetings were always held at Sheraton or at Chief Edwin Clark's house. Then after some time, there were regular meetings of a group known as Southern and Middle Belt Forum, where 4 of the groups, Fenifere, Arewa, when the idea of especially the president from the South came up. And these groups fought very hard, worked together. So there's Southern and Middle Belt Forum, but with regular consultation with Arewa and
Haneze.
No, Arewa, the Southern and Middle Belt Forum is Pandef, Haneze, Fenifere, and Middle Belt Forum. So, but when there was emphasis that the president must come from the South, Arewa did not immediately key in. So Arewa was not part of these other meetings again. But outside that, there are regular consultations. I'll give you an example. When we went for Chief Iwanyanwo's burial, Arewa was represented by the president, Middle Belt was by the president, I represented Pandef, Afenifere was there. So there's regular meeting point, and the discussions focus on how this country can be kept together. It's not about just regional interest. The more overriding discussions are how this country can be kept together under under a situation of justice, equity, and fairness. That a child born in Kaura Namuda can be same as a child born in Ekotikwane with same rights, same aspirations and objectives in this country. So those are the things we discuss, and in that kind of smaller room outside the dictates of political pressure, you're able to express yourself better, understand yourself better, and then you can now bring pressure on the political authorities to understand that we should not rock the boat. So I think we meet regularly. We've not met for some time, but we consult. Chief Iwanya Osbera was 3 months ago, 2 months ago. We met on the confines, the sidelines of the burial. We discussed and some national issues, and agreed on way to go forward.
You assumed leadership of Pandef on October 24, yes. 2024. Before then, the legendary Chief Ike Clark was known as the leader of Pandef and all of that. Tell us more. Shed some light about this successful transition.
All these bodies are quite interesting. There are two, in case of Pandef, we have 2 chairmen of the Board of Trustees. King Alfred Diete-Spiff, the former governor of Rivers State, and Obong Victor Atta, the former governor of Akwa Ibom. They are the chairman of the Board of Trustees. On the Board of Trustees, we have everybody who has been the governor in the South-South, and former heads of legislative bodies and so on, former service chiefs. In fact, in Port Harcourt, when we met and I emerged, there were about 3 former service chiefs and so on. A former chief judge of Nigeria were all there. So that is the level of Board of Trustees. Then you have the national body of a National Executive Committee, which is comprised of people from every state. And it was Akwa Ibom, the former governor of Akwa Ibom, late Air Vice Marshal Nkaha, who was the chairman. When he passed on, Senator Ibogesian, former majority leader of the Senate, chief whip of the Senate, took over temporarily until I emerged. But Chief Clark's position is a position of convener, founder, national leader. And so that is a position I guess nobody will change until his time reaches. But it was the Board of Trustees who decided that it's time to offload leadership to a younger person. And that is how I was co-opted, and I may say conscripted, to take leadership. So Chief Clark remains, he's more of he's a national elder statesman. So he's still there, but the main people who run things are Obongata and King Spiff and myself, who is National Chairman of the Executive Committee. On the committee, we have people from every state, like I've said. And every state in Niger Delta, I think it covers, for about 15 people, you cover almost every major ethnic group. So that makes it a very interesting house. And so
almost 3 months on as
yes.
The new leader of Pandef, how heavy is that the responsibility that
well, I don't know. I think I've given myself in post-retirement. I retired from federal service in 2015. And in post-retirement, I've given myself a job that is more than a full-time job. Because you are dealing with 6 states. You are dealing with so many activities, so many things that happen. I give you an example. We were there in Calabar for the funeral of Joseph Wires. We were there in New York for the funeral of the governor's wife. We were there for Chief Iwanya's funeral. Not only funerals, but other activities. We have to come to Abuja for all the public hearings of the National Assembly. And you have to be able to present your point of view. Last week, we were at the Senate retreat to talk on how the 2025 budget affects the Niger Delta. And then there are other issues. There was oil spillage in Rivers State, a major one. Last week, you don't go all the time yourself, but you have to send a presence. So, and there are so many other meetings. You've asked about how we relate to other groups. The other groups have been holding meetings. Either you are meeting with Ohanese, you are meeting with Afenifere also. So it's quite busy, and we've been able to hold the forte so far.
So let's move on to what I would consider to be the major objective of Pandef, that of protecting the interests of the South-South region. And of course, we know that as of today, the question of environmental degradation, pollution, peace and security are top on the agenda. Now, how is Pandef under your leadership going to tackle some of these issues, perhaps differently from what has been in the past?
Well, let me start from the environment. Different parts of Nigeria have their different ecological challenges. There's no doubt at all. As a matter of fact, the main problem of the Niger Delta was not oil and gas. It was environment. Many people forget that fact. In 1957, when they went to the Constitutional Conference in London, the Niger Delta delegation, Dr. Kuyarikpo, Dodoma, former Graham Douglas, and led by Chief Dapabrie, and now all of them, they went for one purpose, to say, look, this part of the country, a large part, yes, we have the upland parts of Niger Delta, but a good part, every state of Niger Delta has a major part that is wetland, cut off from the country. My local government, Southern Niger local government, produces about 20% of the wealth of this country. But I don't have road to my village. Today, there's no road. The governor is trying to do something, it's getting close. But what I'm saying is, so 1957, the red flag we raised in London, our fathers, was the fact that the Niger Delta will not want to be part of a country where some of its people are cut off because they found themselves in a coastal, waterlogged area where development is impossible. So that was the first issue. But like I said, every part has its own environmental problems. But the greater environmental problem which we have discovered is oil. Oil was first discovered in Oloibiri in 1956, and the first barrels of oil left Bayelsa State in 1958. And oil has brought unimaginable wealth to this country. We're happy. Built a new capital for us, built Lagos after, in the 70s, and built a lot of state capitals for the country. We're happy to share. It's what God has given to all of us. But the way oil is practiced, production is practiced in Nigeria is abysmal. It is what some studies have called environmental genocide. What has happened is that oil, there's spillage happening everywhere. From one study, it is believed that about 100 million barrels of oil have been spilled. Then there was gas flaring that went on and on, that was caking all the land. Look, as a young boy, I grew up in my village, and when we go to bath in the water, the fish will compete with you. Once there is soap, they come to eat it, and you cannot bath. Today, the people in many of the coastal areas in Niger Delta have to wait for frozen fish that has come from China. You go to the village, they tell you, please bring some cartons of frozen fish because the fish has left the water. That is how bad it is. Recently, the UNEP report of 2011, very alarming, and I think people who make laws should read this thing. But then the Bayelsa state government constituted an international consortium of experts to study. Let's not base on fiction. Let's study it. Led by the Archbishop of York, who is number 2 in the Church of England. Independent Americans, Indians, and some Nigerian scholars. And they discovered that there are areas in Bayelsa State where the level of contamination is 1,000 times more than acceptable levels anywhere in the world. Now, the point there is that there is a major environmental disaster in anywhere oil has been produced in the Niger Delta. There is no community left out. So I think, not that I think, but the right thing is for us to start gradual remediation. Yes, you can't undo what has happened, but let the remediation start. When we went to National Assembly this last week, we told the National Assembly, look, Ogoni has suffered, and today, the United, because of the way Sarawel took it up, there is major effort to clean up Ogoni. But Ogoni is a microcosm of the Niger Delta story and let government begin to remediate on pilot basis every area. We cannot say do everything overnight, but you start and scale up gradually. And I think that is what we advocate. Now new oil companies, new oil activities are coming up, deep offshore and so on. Good for the economy of the country, for us, okay. But insist that this time you must keep these environmental standards. Let me end this part by telling you, when I was a young man, in my former life as a young career diplomat, I was in South America, in Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, major oil producing countries, members of OPEC. The place you go to look at the oil facilities, cassava is growing, plantain is growing, maybe about 2-3 meters from the oil well. In Nigeria, where there's an oil well, maybe 1 kilometer, nobody can go close to it because there's gas flaring and so on. Pollution everywhere. The land itself is concrete, more or less. So we must begin to gradually repair this environment. And this is one major issue that we are going to take up. There's a fear now among some of the communities that, oh, the people who polluted have divested and left. That's an issue that has come up.
In fact, that's my next line
Now,
of questioning. Because
I think I'm afraid because the question of pollution is a crime against humanity. And crime against humanity is justiciable ad infinitum. People will pursue it. Communities are now educated. Communities that did not have any lawyers, did not have experts, are now having qualified people who will pursue it in Nigerian courts and go to courts abroad to pursue their rights. And the studies all say the polluters should be made to participate in cleaning the environment. They were wise. They saw what they've done is unacceptable. And then the best thing is to say, hey, we're running away. You take over as it is, as it were. But it's a process that we will talk with government. So good, we can increase oil production to about 3 million barrels. Is the aspiration of President Tinubu, and we, the leaders of Niger Delta, work with him. But on the basis that government should begin to do some conscious work in cleaning up the environment and put laws to make it strict for new people to not pollute. Take the oil out in the way it is done in other countries. I think this is a legitimate, proper
So talking
aspiration.
about the cleanup and
Yes.
remediation exercise, Ogoni has become a signpost of what happens in the
Yes.
entire Niger Delta. If several years, almost a decade after the UN report, UNEP report in Ogoni, the cleanup exercise, the remediation exercise appear not to be making the desired progress. And now we're talking of other parts of the Niger Delta. What, in effect, can Pandef do at this stage to get all the whether government or the companies that are responsible itself, that are divesting from this region, to get back to doing a proper cleanup and remediation?
Well, we'll engage in a very systemic, constructive, and sustained manner. We have to keep engaging all those concerned. And like I said, for the part of the government, for example, when we appeared in National Assembly on Thursday last week, we explained that, look, we look at the budget of the Federal Ministry of Environment and Nostra, we don't see anything provided for cleaning up the environment. So there should be provision in our national budget every year to clean up the environment. It has happened. We can't take the hand of the clock back, but let's begin to gradually clean up. UNEP has told us that the cleanup will take maybe 20 to 30, 40 years. So let the journey of 1,000 miles start all over. For Ogoni, there's work going on. I really do not know the exact situation now, so I cannot comment on it, but I know that it is snail-paced, and it needs to be scaled up, it needs to be accelerated. And if Ogoni can be used as a pilot case, and the experience from Ogoni can now go to the rest of Niger Delta. But let there be consistent effort to clean up. And if not, there will be to create a situation where there will be mistrust from the people. Because, like I said earlier, we've passed, there's a global, this is knowledge-based world now. young people can stay on the social media and see what is happening in Ecuador. Recently in Ecuador, one of the multinational international companies was told to pay about $5 billion for something that happened. Look at what happened in Gulf of Mexico. Till today, the companies that were involved are still paying billions of dollars. And people are seeing these things, and we may not in this country appreciate this, but in their own countries, it is unthinkable to believe that people can make money off poor people. It is not all the time. I accept that there are cases where there are sabotages that can happen, and these are symptoms of frustration or greed on part of some people. But majority of the spillages occur because of old infrastructure. There is a spillage that occurred in Asaretola local government, Rivers State, last year. And it was, last week, I mean. From the inspection, it was clear that the pipes, were those pipes installed maybe in the 60s and in the 70s, they've not been changed. So these things have to be corrected gradually. But we're engaging actively.
In the short term, or in the immediate, is there anything that state governments in this region can do to help their citizens, especially because they also receive the derivation funds?
Of course. No, they are doing it. Every state government. You see, anytime we talk about Niger Delta, what they remind, your people collect 13%. You know, it is so unfair, and I am trying to count my words, because it is so wrong to just take it that if you know the problem these governors are dealing with in the Niger Delta, we are talking about for you to build a road that will cost 20 million in Abuja. In most places in Niger Delta, it will cost 60 million. First, you have to treat the land. You have to treat the land to a point where you can be able to build on top. Then, in terms of environmental cleanup, every state government is doing environmental cleanup in the Niger Delta. The Bayelsa state government is doing, Delta state, because it's a matter of survival for our people. So the state governments are doing their part, but the bigger partner in this is the federal government. The bigger partner are the oil companies. So they have to all join together with the state governments to do this.
All right. Well, again, there's the whole complaint about lack of infrastructure in the region. Because, like they said, I mean, the region appears to be at the bottom of the development indices. And, of course, provision of infrastructure cannot be taken away from that development process in the Niger Delta.
Well, I'm not spokesman for any governor of the Niger Delta. They should speak for themselves. That is why we encourage them, if you do things, go to AIT, go to channels, go to Arise or any of the other platforms, Silverbird, to advertise what you're doing. Let people know what you're doing. So they will speak for themselves. And I believe that in as much as I have given a big pass mark to the governors, there are some areas where there's room for improvement, and we don't keep quiet. When we meet them, we tell them, Your Excellency, this area, that area. But with the general infrastructural situation, I can understand the reluctance on the part, or I can maybe empathize that when maybe in the federal location you need to build a road, let us say to one of the very coastal states, and what you need to spend is 3 times what you have to spend in other areas. So there's an apathy on the part of those who do infrastructure to go and put so much money in one particular state, forgetting that that is where the money is coming from. And that is the place of the social justice aspect of it. And it has a cyclical effect, because the people who feel so neglected, so left behind, go back and want to do things that are wrong. Why did militancy start in the Niger Delta? Towards the twilight of the military regimes, the young men were brought from all over the country, and they came to Abuja. And they came and saw what is here, and they said, man, is this in Nigeria? And people said, yes, it's the money from your place that built everything you see here. They went back home and said, no, we won't let this continue. Come and build these things back at home. To go from Port Harcourt to Bayelsa normally is 1 hour. Now it takes you about 2 hours. But that is even a good case. Now from Benin to go down to a place like Auchi, don't even think about it. You have to go to Ekiti State. Pass through some rural village in Ekiti State to get to Benin. It's now that NTDC has now taken up to do the road from Benin to Irua and to a few other places. And NTDC is also now doing from Port Harcourt to Owerri. It's normally both oil producing states. It's normally 2 hours, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. When I went for Chief Iwanya, it took me 4 hours. To go from Port Harcourt to Uyo was okay, but from Uyo to Calabar took me 6 hours, a journey that normally takes 2 hours. And by the time I got to Calabar, I was sick. And everybody in our car, two times of car breakdown. Now to take Joseph Wyas's body to his hometown in Obudu, normally from Obudu to Calabar, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, about 8 hours. This is where the oil comes from. So it is difficult to explain, and it goes all over the place in the Niger Delta. I think there should be more. It's like a state of emergency. Okay, look at the other side, other infrastructure that are federal. The cocoa port is not working. The Sapele port is not working. The Warri port is not working. The Calabar port is not working. The port in One, 50-50. So if these infrastructure are not working, where the money is coming from, it's a thing that we should ponder and think. Where does fairness come in a situation where the goose that lays the golden egg is starved? The money that comes from the oil, but thank God now it is oil and gas. And let nobody make a mistake. Every part of Nigeria has a lot of resources, and we hope government will develop all of it. But for now that the wealth is coming from this area, take care of the area. Let it be like other areas. When we looked at the budget for 2025, we saw that the East-West Road was marginal, what was provided. The main road connecting the 6 states. So I think that our Pandef, our belief, is that we will continue engaging the federal government to show more sensitivity. And when we talk of federal government, we are not absolving previous governments. We are not absolving previous government. More needed to be done for the Niger Delta. Because I spoke with someone, somebody said, why are you saying federal government, federal government? What of other? Yes, other governments too could have done, but then government is a continuum. You inherit the goodness of power, you inherit the liabilities of governance. So,
talking about the East-West Road,
yes,
that road has been on the drawing board since 1999.
You know what?
And even before then.
I told somebody just on Friday that I went from Calabar to Uyo, from Uyo to Calabar by road. He said, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You should have taken a boat from Oron to Calabar. So this was a top government.
This was the way by which I went the last time
I know, this is a top government official who has a responsibility for fixing that road, one of them. I wouldn't say who. And he was giving me an option of how I could have gone through water. I mean, I'm not afraid of water. I was born inside water. But let's think of how we can do more for the area. We are not asking it as a matter of wrong. It's a right thing. We're doing it for the rest of the country. So don't forget the area. And we will meet. Look, Mr. President has said we want oil production to increase because this country must develop. But then as we are doing this, when you are doing what is good that you are doing for the country, also take care of the area. Don't starve the goose that lays the golden egg. Simplicity. That's just what we ask.
All right. Ambassador, let's move on to another area, which is the whole issue of peace and security. You have mentioned here the very pivotal role that Pandef and the SSPA before it played in getting the militants to lay down their arms and helping to improve oil production and ensuring that the Nigerian economy survives, as it were. What exactly is Pandef thinking of now, moving forward? And so how to continue to maintain that peace and the security in that region?
Well, we have a youth wing, and our youth wing is engaging with various youth leaders in the area to make sure that there is no vandalization. Our youth wing is also working to make sure that, working also together with groups like Tantita and other groups to make sure that oil theft is brought down. to the barest minimum, and that our youth are not involved in any oil theft. And I think that's something that government is, with the military, they're doing a good work on that. And but we are also looking at security in terms of political security among ourselves.
Exactly.
To make sure that among our political leaders, there's a level of understanding for them to work together. Because it has to come from top in terms of leadership. They have to give a good example of working together among themselves. So in few areas where there are misunderstandings, we are setting up some framework to be able to intervene. And that's one of the things we are doing. For example, when we were in Port Harcourt, the Pandef leadership saw that we have a major crisis in our hands in Rivers State, which is something that the whole country is aware of. So what we've done is we constituted a very high-level committee. Whatever conflict to dialogue, so through dialogue. And there's no conflict situation that is intractable. There's always possibility to resolve them. And our elders looked at it, the Board of Trustees, they said, look, this matter has gone on for some time. Even the president of the country has come in. And we, the elders, we, the fathers of the region, must take the pain of getting to the bottom of this matter. And a committee was set up, headed by Obonvito Atta. Other members include Colonel Pam Oga, who was a former military governor of Kwara State during the military era. Mrs. Senator Stella Omu was chief whip of the Senate at the time. Senator Ibogesian, who was chief whip too. Senator Roland Owe. These are from different states. Roland Owe is from Edo. Pam Oga is from Cross River State. Stella Omu is from Delta State. The former deputy governor of Bayelsa State, Admiral Jonah, who was commandant of the War College.
The former deputy governor.
Former deputy governor. And Mrs. Stella Dogo from Bayelsa State, who was a ranking member in the House of Rep. All these are very senior people. Maybe apart from Stella Dogo, every other person is above 80 years of age. So they are old enough to be the father or the fathers or mother of most of the political actors in Rivers State. And mind you, some of them were even contemporaries of even Mr. President. Obongata was a governor in 1999, at the same time as our dear president. So they've taken it upon themselves to take the sacrifice. And what we have appealed is that all the political actors should give peace a chance, listen to these old people. Their age, people going to 90 years, some of them, it's not easy to be moving around, but they've taken it upon themselves that we will listen to our children and bring peace. Look at Israel and Hamas. After everything and the thousands of people died, now they are the threshold of peace. Ukraine and Russia, Trump, after today said, you must have peace. So whatever, all the wars that the world has fought end up in the peace table. So our plea to all the sides is give peace a chance, listen to these old people. There will be some wisdom, some counsel in trying to go forward. So we are doing that. There are other states where there are problems, one or two other states that we are brewing. We have an early warning system that we have. We have set up a committee headed by the Deputy National Chairman of Pandef, Bade Igali from Cross River, to go into those cases. So those are the things we are trying to do.
All right. Still on the crisis resolution in the Niger Delta. It appears that during the Christmas, or towards the end of 2024,
yes,
there was a spike, so to say, because we saw, particularly in Rivers, the protagonists, the antagonists, and all of that, hurling accusations and counter-accusations at each other. And that was after the peace committee was put in place.
It's a storm in a teacup. It's a family affair. It is a family affair. The situation in Rivers State is a family affair. We are going to resolve it. Our elders are working. And, when you are involved in these things, you don't come and say everything you are doing. things have inflamed already. So, but it's a family affair because, look, I grew up in Port Harcourt, primary school, secondary school. My first degree was University of Port Harcourt, where the first set. So all these people, we know ourselves. We still meet when we are traveling in the flight. We meet in the burials. We meet in child marriages in Port Harcourt. The same from the two sides, and we greet each other, hug each other. So it is a family affair. It's a misunderstanding that sometimes people blow out of proportion. And so we know we'll resolve it. I assure you, and we assure everybody, Obongata is the architect of modern Akwa Ibom. Go to Akwa Ibom, see the foundation he laid. He's a very experienced man. He was not a today man, a man in his late 80s. And all the rest people, the experienced people, Roland Owe, Pamoga, he was governor across Kwara State about 30 years ago. So these are very experienced people. They've seen a lot of things. And I have confidence that peace will return to Rivers State. Let's just give some time. And we are happy that both our son, the Minister of FCT, is performing wonders here in Abuja. And the governor of Rivers State, despite all these things, look at what he has achieved in 1 year. There's almost no governor that can compare to him in terms of what he has done in this 1 year. So they are working, but it is the situation of this public perception, this public diatribes, and it's what makes us uncomfortable. So our elders are working, and we appeal to all Nigerians to give them chance. We appeal to the supporters, the cheerleaders of all the both groups to listen to them. There's always wisdom in listening to old men. And let's give them a chance to talk to us and talk to all those concerned.
Okay, Ambassador, before we go, let's quickly just talk about the South-South Development Commission, which was put in place very recently. Side by side with the NDDC, do you see a possible conflict of roles and responsibilities?
No. I think what President Tinubu has done will take this country forward. I told you in the beginning, when our fathers decided to build in Nigeria, they saw that there is a lot of potency in encouraging regionalism. Let every region compete with others in a healthy way. So what he's now doing, there are regional commissions. These regional commissions will be the harbingers of development in their regions. NDDC is a different kettle of fish. It's a body set up specifically for oil and gas and the problems that came with it. So we are happy that the National Assembly has passed the South-South Development Commission and is before President for assent, and we know he will sign very soon. It will bring us at par. So that Minister of Regional Development, under a very dynamic engineer, Momo, will be able to bring development to all the parts of the country. But NDDC is on its own track, dealing with the problems that have been occasioned by oil and gas. And the present management of NDDC under Samuel Boko has done wonders. In fact, we are happy that President Tinubu has been able to appoint a substantive board. For the past 8 years, we had ad hoc people. But now with the substantive board, the board and the management, they are doing, I just mentioned the road from Benin going to Auchi. They've taken it over. The road between Port Harcourt and Owerri, they've taken it over. And they've done light up operation, light up Niger Delta. So you go to all our villages, there's solar light everywhere. So these are the things NDDC is doing so that there can be peace in the area to allow the national economy to grow. And I think we commend Samuel Boko and his team. And we think that the South-South Development Commission will focus like the Northeast, Northwest, the Southwest, Southeast, and hopefully the North Central Development Commission to bring development of all parts of the country at par with one another.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. 1 hour is not enough to tackle all the issues, so
thank you.
We may have to have you at any other time to look at progress on these very many areas. But thank you for your time.
I should thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Ambassador much. Dr. Godknows Boladei Igali is a career diplomat, former Nigerian ambassador to Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland, and he was at different times advisor to Presidents Obasanjo and Yaradua. was also a permanent secretary in the federal ministry, is currently the leader of Pandef, the Pan Niger Delta Forum, which is the apex organization for the people of the South-South region. Thank you so much.
Asha, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome. All right, that's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.